Alright guys, so today I'm going to be teaching you how to clear code your project, and this will hold true to any project that you make in my class, whether it's the phone stand projects, it could even be the scoop project you do in 6th grade, possibly even the picture frame project, or maybe even anything else. This will hold true for any project you might do in general with clear code. So, a few things you're going to need first, if you choose to do a stain or a paint, that has to be done prior to clear coating, and it has to be done and dried completely. You cannot do something that is wet, or else it will ruin the stain and the clear coat, and it will just make a giant mess and waste a lot of things. After that is completely done and dried thoroughly, you're going to need a piece of sandpaper, a hair dryer, your clear coat. You're also going to need one of these mallets, a screwdriver, and last but not least, you'll need a foam brush. Alright, so let's get into things. First thing we're going to need to do is take the screwdriver, open up this container, and by the way, with clear coating, you do not need to have a pair of gloves for this project or for this part. If it gets on your skin, it's not going to hurt you. We can just always clean it off later in the sink. So anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to take our clear coat, which looks like this. We're going to take the foam brush, dip just the tip of it in, so you can see just that chiseled part, the tip, it's coated, wipe off any extra that's left over. And then we're very lightly going to go over the top of our piece of wood and just coat everything nice and evenly. When we're doing this, we're brushing away from ourselves. That way we're not getting clear coat all over the place. When you run out of the clear coat, you can put some more in, or put some more on your brush, and just keep on going. Just make sure whatever you do, you don't put too much clear coat on your brush to the point that it is literally dripping off and it makes a giant mess like that. Also, pay attention to your corners, edges, or any grooves or surfaces that might have a clear coat, like get caught in those areas. You can always go over, back brush it a little bit, and kind of wipe it off, and you can always wring out your foam brush within the container of clear coat itself. So go over, coat the entire thing, just like so. After you clear coat everything, I would suggest you go over and just back brush everything, which is just a fancy name for cover your tracks. Go over everything, brush it nice and evenly, and this just ensures that you got everything coated and you don't have any spots that may be dripped or you have too much coating, okay? But just please don't put too much on. We're gonna lay this off to the side. Whatever you do, don't lay directly on the table. I would suggest that you suspend it on top of the board with nails, which you can get them from beneath the table or somewhere else safe. Also, keep the clear coat in the center of the table. That way we don't have any accidents and we don't have anyone knocking it over or dipping their hands or anything inside. After the first clear coat is done, what we're going to do is we're going to let it dry. Now you can either let it dry by itself, which it takes roughly half an hour or so to dry completely, or we're going to speed up that process using a hair dryer. Plug the hair dryer in. And what we're going to do is use the hair dryer to speed the process up and just dry the thing out. Alright, after that, just do a double check with your fingers and just make sure it's not tacky. If it is, go back through and dry it off a little bit more, but for us, this is perfectly fine. Notice when I was doing that, I was moving it back and forth. Don't leave it in one spot or else it'll cause the clear coat to kind of like bubble and turn pretty nasty. Alright, next thing we have to do is, believe it or not, we're going to sand this a little bit. When we sand, I'm just saying we're scuffing the surface. What happens is sometimes we have some dirt that's caught in the brush. It's also maybe inside of the clear coat, hopefully not, or there's just dust in the air and impurities. We want to take the sandpaper and just lightly go over top, sand everything, and when I say lightly, like that was it. We're done. After that sanding job is completely finished, you go and you coat your project a second time. And we're going to do a total of 3 coats altogether. Same exact process, coat everything nice and evenly. Make sure you're brushing away from yourself, just like this. And like I said, don't use too much clear coat. If you do, it'll turn a milky white color and your project will not turn out nice at all. Nice, thin, even coats. When you're completely done, go back through and just back brush everything. Just like so. Just to make sure everything has a nice even coat. Do your edges as well. And then we're going to repeat the drying process one more time. after that's completely done, double check it, just make sure it's dry, and we're going to repeat the process and sand once again. You always sand between coats. That way you get all these rough spots all completely off, and so on. And do all of your sides as well. Don't do just one side, do every single side of your project. So for me, for the demonstration, I'm just doing this small little area here, but if you had your project completely coated, you do one surface at a time, throw on the board with nails, completely dry it off, and you can do the edges too. And before you flip it over to the other side, that's when you would actually go through and you would dry it before you flip it. And then you can do the other side once more. All right, now, since we're coming up on the last coat here, we're gonna get rid of this. We don't sand after the third coat, you never do. We're gonna dip our brush in once more, give ourselves one last coat, same thing as last time, nice even light coat, like so. Don't put too much on, coat everything, make sure you get your edges, and then back brush it once more, like that. What we're doing is we're just building on top of those previous layers that we had before. We're making a very nice clean covering and clear coat of our project. So the last step, dry it off, and then that is it. All right, and just like that, we have our 3 even coats on that came out pretty beautifully. You can tell the difference, well, I can at least, from just tilting it in the light, the reflection of where it was coated and where it wasn't. When you're completely done, the very last thing you do before you call it quits, everything has to be put away. Board with nails goes underneath the table, like so. All these supplies over here have to be put away. First though, let's put the lid on top of the clear coat. Take a hammer, lightly tap on the top, seat that down inside, dry out. Now we're going to put all of our supplies away on the shelf to my right. So that shelf would be located over here on this side of the room. So all these supplies, the clear coat and all that stuff goes on the bottom shelf. After we clean out the brush, that'll go inside of this brush container right here. Make sure you clean out the brush, as well as dry it out completely in the sink. Please, if you leave a brush in the container and you don't clean it out properly, it will turn as hard as a rock and it will basically waste it. Run it underwater, just turn it on slightly, move it back and forth. We want to soak all that clear coat and try to get it like diluted. Use your hands, squeeze it, get them to dry the clear coat out until the water runs clear. Just like that. Turn the water off. Bring out any extra stuff that's left over inside. Then we're going to take a paper towel, dry off our clear coated foam tip brush. Put this back where it belongs over on the side, and then that is basically it.